How does the Coffin Rot song start? Does it start with you, Trey?
Are you talking about just like how composition starts in general?
Yeah.
I want to say yeah, like as far as like all the album two stuff and anything that I might be writing in the future for the band, definitely didn't start out that way. When we did the first demo, a lot of those songs actually just came from just us jamming. Like we just get to the rehearsal space, I just riff around, just whatever caught our attention, we just build off of that. I mean, the main riff for forced self-consumption, I know I had that at least for like since the Chemical Warfare days when I first joined the band, but we never ended up using it. Sobbly Suicide, I believe, was written in like maybe like 20 minutes or so. But yeah, as far as like all the album two material, I basically just end up writing a lot of that stuff at home. I'll tab it out on Guitar Pro, then show it to the guys at rehearsals. So for the most part, the album two material was like mostly done by the time like we get to rehearsing. Of course, like the whole band definitely operates as democracy, so everyone gets their input. We do make a lot of changes to the structure, so like even a lot of the songs I bring in may sound like totally different as far as like structure goes by the time we get done rehearsing it. And by the time Johnny joined the band, I want to say like 6 out of the 8 songs were fully written and rehearsed to the point where how you hear them on the album is exactly how they were back then. But Johnny had some major input on 3 of those songs that I would say would not sound nearly as good without his input. A lot of really cool do me sections he's suggested into our writing.
Trey, do you demo stuff on your own, like with a DAW or something like that?
Only recently. The majority of the time I've been playing guitar, I'd mainly just riff on my own, like either in my living room or my bedroom. For the most part, I'll just write full songs sitting down. Then once I have like a full structure, I'll tab everything out on Guitar Pro. And when it's time to show the guys any of the new material that I have, I'll tab it on Guitar Pro, email, Brandon, Johnny, have them learn the riffs, and then we'll all get together, play it as it, but then we'll, make any structural changes. And if any of the other guys have any inputs of how we should change stuff, like everyone will get their piece.
I think one of my favorite things about Trey, aside from him just being like a chill dude in general, is he never takes like constructive criticism like personally. I've had a lot of times with other people that I've been in bands with, like if they come in with a riff and you're like, hey, like this, like I'm not so sure about that, then their immediate defense is like, well, if you don't like it, then you write the fucking riffs. and Trey's never been like that. And Trey can attest to it. Like I always have something. I can't play guitar to save my life, but I always have some kind of input whenever he brings something to the band. And Trey's always really good about listening. And sometimes I've had some terrible ideas about composition, and other times it's worked out pretty good. But
yeah,
Trey's always good about like listening to what the rest of us have to say instead of just being, like Trey can play guitar, better than anybody I know, but you would never know that from like just listening to him talk and like his attitude about it. So composing songs with Trey is always pretty easy. He's pretty easygoing, which makes it a lot of fun for the rest of us.
I mean, as the vocalist, like you obviously sometimes when you just play guitar, you just arrange riffs. It's not always on your mind how the vocal phrasing will go, or even how 2 sections might butt up against each other in an awkward way when you're putting vocals over them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And we've definitely had those discussions before. Usually it's like, hey, I was kind of envisioning doing something right here during this section, and I don't really have like enough time to do it. So we need to, stretch this part out longer, or we need to, Trey, where you were planning on putting a solo, like I have lyrics written for that section. So can we move the solo somewhere else? That actually happened in one of the songs on the new record. And I didn't even realize until we got to the studio that Trey had a solo right there, just because Johnny hadn't fully learned that song yet. So Trey had just been playing rhythm parts.
Right.
So we get to the studio and Trey starts recording a solo in a section where I have all these vocals written out. And I kind of went into panic mode and had to kind of shift things around. And I was honestly pretty peeved but I got to admit, like, that solo in that section, that's probably the best solo on the record. So it ended up working out pretty good.
Which song was this?
That one is Predator Becomes Prey.
Okay. So the album that we're speaking about is Dreams of the Disturbed. It's the second Coffin Rot album, and it'll be released on the 20th of September through Maggot Stomp Records. You alluded a little bit to a slight change in style, or maybe bringing in some more influences into this album that weren't on the earlier recordings. How would you compare Dreams of the Disturbed to your earlier stuff?
I would say there's more going on. I think A Monument to the Dead is pretty, for anybody that doesn't know, that's the first record. A Monument to the Dead is super straightforward. There's nothing flashy. I think really the only section that may come as a surprise to anybody is like the very end of Coffin Rot, where it's kind of got like a black metal-y, doomy kind of thing going on. But the new record, we had a lot of conversations of like things that we had done a lot of before and that we wanted to kind of dial back, like punky riffs, stuff like that. We kind of wanted to step back from that because there was a lot of that on the first record. And then the conversation we had the most was like the stuff that we hadn't, that we really wanted to dabble in, like brutal death metal-esque, like heavy breakdown sections, like Suffocation type stuff. Some, atmospheric-y, like ambient, doomy kind of sections. We wanted to incorporate a lot of things we hadn't done before, all while still trying to make it obvious to everybody that like this is a Coffin Rot record. Like, we wanted to make sure there was like an appropriate amount of evolution, all while still being like genuine to who we are as a band. So yeah, I just think the new record, I think it has a lot more to offer. I think it highlights everybody's musicianship a lot more. I'll let Trey expand if he wants.
Yeah, I mean, one of our buddies we got to show the record to, I remember him comparing the two records, saying something along the lines of like, A Monument to the Dead is like a really cool record if I want to listen to like just catchy, like punky, just straightforward, no frills death metal. But like if I want to go for like something where I just want to hear like really well structured songs, I would lean towards the new record for that. But yeah, I do agree with Hayden that I feel like this record definitely does emphasize musicianship a little bit better between all five members. I think all five of us have good places to shine on this record. Brandon definitely has some really cool bass lines on the record. Johnny's got, I mean, between me and Johnny, like there's 11 guitar solos and lead sections, whereas like the first record had like 4 guitar solos or lead sections total. Hayden's vocals sound absolutely nasty on this record. A huge fan of his performance, but I think the biggest growth on the record might be the drums. Not saying like the drums are fucking killer on the previous record, but like Derek just absolutely knocked it out of the park with this new record.
100%.
Really cool drum dynamics, straight up like almost like Pete Sandoval, like double bass sections on a couple of the new songs. But man, yeah, that's basically my input for this record.
How would you say you evolved as a songwriter in terms of the arrangements? Was there anything you learned from the previous album, or maybe playing those songs live, that you implemented on this album?
I think with this record, I don't know, like I really like songs that are structured like almost like a movie or story arc. Like it's got like a really cool intro, build up, and a climax, but a resolution. Like I'm a huge fan of like doomy, even black metal bands that have like really big like outros. And I wanted to like kind of recreate that in like a death metal context. Whereas the first record, I think it was just like try to fit as many riffs and tempo changes in songs as possible. Or yeah, I feel like I don't know, just implementing those like weird little like intro, build up, climax, resolution structures made this record stick out a little bit more.